So now as far as Snap is concerned, the pattern has changed, right? So the total marks, they would remain 150, but the difference is that the total number of questions has came down to around about 130. Now the bifurcation is that you have these 30 marks as far as Snap is concerned. So every section will have these 30 marks, and there is something new called as special questions. Now if you look at, for the fact special questions are concerned, okay, according to me, the level of difficulty of special question is going to be little bit on a higher level, because these are the TITA questions, kind of. You will not get the MCQs, you will have to type in the answer by using the virtual keyboard. Now as far as number of questions are reduced from 150 to 130, these questions are actually going to be a little bit on a tougher side, okay. Now overall, as far as the overall difficulty level of Snap is concerned, let's not even talk about it, because we are really not sure how it's going to be. But yeah, we can actually prepare for everything, whatever we can, as far as Snap is concerned. One more thing that needs to be taken care of is that now this year they have made a mention about general English. I'm going to talk about this, why they have specifically mentioned it as a general English, because every year it is basically verbal ability, reading comprehension, all that stuff. So there is a little bit of trick out here. Anyway, so now let's move ahead and understand what you should be preparing. But yeah, do have a good look at these kind of questions. So 30, 30, 30, 20, and you will have 5 special questions. I will also be talking about the strategy, whether you should be actually picking them up or not. Now, to move ahead as far as your preparation is concerned, let's start from the first segment of Snap, which is verbal ability. Now, as far as verbal ability is concerned, there is a quite lot happening over here. So as I said, like they said general English. Now, why they have said general English is basically, I think the verbal reasoning, as far as your you can say critical reasoning also, there are something called as syllogs. So you might have syllogism questions out here, right? You might get questions based on course of action, you might get questions based on cause and effect, you might get questions based on assumptions, and then conclusions, inference, so on and so forth, right? So be a little bit ready that you might see these kind of questions as far as verbal is concerned. And then comes the traditional verbal. As far as the number of questions are reduced, like from 40 to 35, I don't think they will reduce the level of RC. Rather, the number of questions of RC will still remain the same. You'll get 2 RC. 1 RC will be absolutely manageable. Second RC, this will still be manageable, but the thing is that you have to put a little bit more efforts on it, right? So you will not be getting straightforward questions, but trust me, in both the scenario, your questions are going to be fact-based. Snap will not be asking you inference-based question a lot, so your questions will be straightforward. It's going to be a little bit lengthy. You need to kind of read through a lot. There will be like 6 to 7 paragraphs, something like that, right? So the total question will range from 10 to 12. That's as far as your reading comprehension is concerned. Then the next segment will be your parajumble. So parajumble you can expect around about 3 to 4. Again, these two things are damn scoring as far as your verbal ability, or rather as far as your general English section is concerned. So you can bank upon these two things. Then comes your grammar. So as far as grammar is concerned, I think this is again a short thing wherein you can kind of move ahead and do a little bit of practice. Now, as far as grammar is concerned, what Snap asks is basically part of speech, okay? So you can get done parts of speech, right? Then something to do with the tenses. You can go and kind of check out rules of tenses, right? All the 12 tenses you can have a look at. Then comes subject verb agreement. Then comes parallelism, right? So all these things, even if you just kind of do a little bit of practice for next 1 or 2 days, I think you should be very well sorted as far as grammar is concerned. So in the grammar segment, only try to take care of the basic grammar which we have studied in 8th or 9th standard. That's it. And there are a couple of things that they ask, like roundabout punctuations and prepositions and so on and so forth. Now, the only thing is that if you do a bit of practice on this front, you will be able to get that confidence, because as far as preposition, punctuation, tenses, these things are concerned, I think we have just done with CAT. So not that much practice has been done on this front. And again, though you have prepared for NMAT, I'm not sure that everybody has gone for the NMAT. So what you should be doing here is that doing a little bit of practice on these things. Trust me, it's going to be manageable. The questions are going to be easy as far as these segments are concerned. Now, the most important segment, or I would say the painful segment out here, is vocab. So a lot of people are actually struggling as far as vocabulary is concerned. Now, there is one more thing that Snap may ask you, something called as, they might ask you idioms, they might ask you some phrases like foreign phrases and all that stuff. They might ask you something we call at, as far as the vocab is concerned, they might ask you this thing, synonym and antonym, right? So synonym and antonym they can ask you, but again, it's a part of your vocabulary. They might ask you figures of speech, guys, right? Now, this is the main struggle and this is the main trouble as far as Snap is concerned. So, not everybody is actually ready with these things, right? So, guys, as much as I can do, right? Rather, जितना हो सके उतना करो कोशिश कि हम भाई idioms पढ़े, phrases पढ़े, synonym, antonym पढ़े. But I think according to me, it's going to be waste of time. Why? Because though you kind of sit down with like 200, 300 phrases or like couple of figures of speech or idioms and all that stuff, I think this is not really going to be worth, because whatever you can do in this segment, you're really not sure what is going to be there in the paper as far as Snap is concerned, because your vocabulary, your idioms, your phrases, I think it's vast. It's like an ocean, right? So what I would suggest is basically, rather than putting time into it and having no direction, or rather having no security of your output in the paper, I would say that don't do this kind of things. The first thing that you can do is work a little bit more on the other section of Snap and try to build up your score out there. So try to compensate the score which you're missing out here. Try to get the same little bit more marks in that section. As far as these things are concerned, here you'll be able to cope with around about 15 to 20 questions. Vocabulary, as far as my knowledge is concerned, what's the best way to do vocab? If you have last 10 years or last 15 years ka papers of Snap, even if you do them for all these things, idioms and phrases and all that, and even for grammar, if you can just pick up last 10 to 15 years papers and do the vocab. For example, one of the questions was exodus. So what's the antonym of exodus? So that's going to be influx. Okay, so they will not be asking you exodus again. That will not get repeated. But whatever options were there, 1, 2, 3, 4 options were there, right? Try to see those words and try to have their synonyms and antonyms. So you might get something on a level of say stampede, because it's just a close by, though it's not a correct synonym, but stampede is a close by kind of a word as far as exodus is concerned. So try to do these many words. So I think if you look at 10 to 15 years ka paper, it will be around about 100 and 150 words you'll be able to do. I think that's a good idea. But again, I'm not very sure. As far as Snap is concerned, it is been known for repeating the questions. So do questions get repeated? Yes, they do get repeated, even though the questions are not getting repeated, but yeah, the format will definitely get repeated, and the type also for grammar, right? If you see that in grammar, Snap has always been asking you questions on parallelism or subject verb agreement. That's a short area for you, so you got to do that, right? So that's all about your verbal. Now coming back to quants, yeah, this is going to be your scoring area. Now it's going to be quant plus DI plus data sufficiency. So around about 28 questions will be based on quants. Now as far as quants is concerned, guys, anyway, I will be making a video wherein I'll be giving you round about last 8 to 9 years analysis, so you don't have to put your head into the last paper. I will be telling you analysis that, like, number system came for how many questions, arithmetic came for how many questions, so on and so forth. But as far as Snap is concerned, it's going to be arithmetic driven. Okay, it will ask you everything. So there is a good balance as far as Snap quants is concerned. So they'll ask you geometry, they'll ask you algebra, they'll ask you trigono, they'll ask you surds and indices, they might ask you algebra, right? So everything will be there in bits and pieces. But if you look at the dominant segment of quant is going to be arithmetic, and the questions are predominantly going to be on simple interest, compound interest, ratio and proportion, averages. This is going to be more calculative. You literally have to do this immediately, right? You literally have to do this verbally, because it's going to be more calculation intensive. It might be a little tough, or it might look a little tough, but trust me, it's always manageable. So you need to now understand that what all things you know. If you don't know algebra, leave it. If you don't know trigono, leave it. Even if you do a bit of geometry, a bit of arithmetic, I think you should be sorted. I will not say that you leave the things completely. At least do a little bit of basics wherein the questions can be solved on formula based, because the questions will be there which can be solved just by using the formula. So as far as quants is concerned, I think it's something good that you can do, because if you're not scoring in vocab, you can score in here. As far as data interpretation is concerned, last year people said that DI was tough, but actually DI was not tough. It was a little bit lengthy and it was a little bit calculative. The options were still okay. Now what you need to do is, for next 10 days, you need to practice your approximations properly. You need to practice how to deal with numbers with decimals. You need to practice how to solve those tables, line graph, and so on and so forth. But trust me, if you practice at least 3 to 4 data interpretation sets on a daily basis, this should give you a good hands-on solving snap data interpretation, right? It's not going to be as worst as the IFT-DI, but yes, it's going to be calculative, no doubt about that. Now, don't be afraid of it, because if you're getting a DI, which is for like 6 marks, if you don't know algebra and all that, instead solving those kind of questions which will take longer time, I would definitely prefer data interpretation over and above other quants, because I might put in a little bit more time, but I'll get short answers. So my accuracy goes up, my attempts go up, and definitely my score will be jumping up. So this is something you need to think from this perspective. So yeah, data interpretation is going to be calculative, but absolutely manageable. Then moving on to the next question, which is logical reasoning. This segment is going to be scoring segment for you. Anybody who's not working hard on this segment will be at a loss. So what you have to do is, as I said, past 10 to 15 years paper you have to take, solve all the puzzles, solve all the coding, decoding, direction, blood relation, right? Number series, alpha series, input and output, all these kind of questions you need to solve from last papers of SNAP. Trust me, this entire segment is going to be really scoring. So practice is required. Again, when you practice, you also need to understand something like input and output. This can be a little bit dangerous, because last year people could not crack input output. It was really tough. So you also need to understand, okay, as far as logical reasoning is concerned, there will be around about 35 questions. I will not be talking about the attempts and all, but yeah, you can attempt maximum in this. Trust me, this one section can give you round about a good amount of percentile. If you talk about this section, even if you take care of logical reasoning, you might land up in 40 to 45 percentile in SNAP, wherein you might get a call from any of the college, right? So logical reasoning is going to be really important. So what needed as far as logical reasoning is concerned, practice, practice and practice. Now, how do you do the practice? You got to time yourself, right? When you solve previous papers, I will not say you solve mocks, because I don't think there is any institute which has mocks up to the level of SNAP 2017, because SNAP 2017 was damn tough. Okay, so you can do a combination, a bit of previous year paper, a bit of mock given to you by your classes. So do a combination, but yeah, you got to time yourself as far as logical reasoning is concerned, as far as quant or DI is concerned. That's going to help you out. And last but not the least, the most important segment is current affair, general awareness. Guys, as far as SNAP is concerned, they love to give you international news. So you got to pay a lot of attention as far as international news are concerned. I've already made a video. I will be making a separate video. But to cover this section, you can have organizations, you can talk about personalities, any personality which has been there in the news, right? For example, any businessman who's been there, any sports person, anything, right, like that. You need to understand organizations, personalities, politics, right? So polity is also important. Any bill that has been passed, what's the level of India in the indexes and all that stuff. Sports is going to be the most important section as far as SNAP is concerned, so you cannot miss sports, right? Now, as far as World Cup is concerned, say for example, there isn't any World Cup that happened in year 2016. Does that mean that you should not be doing it? It's not like that. You got to do this, because though it is not 1 year previous current affair, SNAP may ask you, because sports is an important category as far as SNAP is concerned. So guys, now onwards, what you have to do is you got to understand that I am going to study quality and not quantity. You don't have to study 100%. Don't do everything as far as SNAP is concerned. Don't go so crazy on current affair that you're doing books, you're doing authors, you're doing history, you're doing everything. SNAP is very much keen on business, economics, sports and corporations. Take care of these 4 categories as far as your current affair is concerned. You will be sorted for your current affairs. So try to make sure that you are solving mocks, you are giving previous year papers, you are glued to the current affairs, right? And go section by section. I have told my Pune students is that you take logical reasoning for like 1 day. So you have 10 years ka paper with you, right? So just say, give yourself 2 days, knock off the entire logical reasoning from last 10 years paper. Understand where you go wrong and understand your strength, because that's what you're going to be playing on as far as your SNAP is concerned. So that's going to be your strategy for next 10 days. If you have any issues, any concern, you can put in the comment. But now onwards, what you need to understand is you got to narrow down your preparation. Don't do everything. Focus more on mocks and previous year papers. And the most important thing is speed, because speed is going to be the maker or breaker. Okay, guys, I wish you good luck for your SNAP and thank you so much for your time.